The Texas Parks and Wildlife television series is supported in part by Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, conserving the wild things and wild places of Texas thanks to members across the state.
Additional funding provided by the Toyota Tundra. Your local Toyota dealers are proud to support outdoor recreation and conservation in Texas. Adventure, it's what we share.
Coming up on Texas Parks and Wildlife.
The White Bass Run is very exciting because the numbers of fish you can catch. Sweet.
People, when you tell them they displace fire, it's like, yay. But the net effect is very negative.
So we're really just trying to explore what we can do.
And that's added up through protection of over 200 miles of rivers and streams in Texas.
Texas Parks and Wildlife, a television series for all outdoors.
Are we gonna do the biggest fish and the most fish?
Yes,
It's gonna be a nice day.
it is.
On a cool spring morning in mid-March, Ray Arquette and his daughters Evelyn and Elizabeth are going fishing.
We're on Yawa Creek, which is a feeder creek for Lake Somerville.
This time of year, Yawa Creek is a popular spot for a particular fish.
We're out here looking for white bass during the White Bass Run. Uh-oh, I got first fish. First white bass of the day. It's a keeper. It's about an average white bass. They have to be 10 inches to keep, 16 inches is a trophy. We always do first fish, biggest fish, and most fish, so I just got the first fish. The White Bass Run is very exciting because the numbers of fish you can catch. Number 2 for me.
Got one.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Go, sis. Got a nice one. Now I gotta get the hook out.
Got one on?
Yep, caught a fish, Dad.
Nice, nicely done.
Bigger than yours.
The beautiful fish. Look at the sun shine off that thing. Sweet.
White bass, also known as sand bass, are fun to catch in rivers and lakes year-round. But from January through May, large numbers of white bass make their way upstream to spawn. This annual event is known as the White Bass Run, and it's a fishing tradition for many Texans.
We in Texas have some really top-notch, world-class white bass fishing. I got a couple bumps in that little pocket down there. 3 main factors impact the White Bass Run. As the days get longer and longer, the white bass start perking up a little bit, and they start moving towards these tributary streams. They like water temperatures around 50 degrees to trigger them to really commit to coming up into the river. And then a little bit of rain, a little bit of extra flow really helps too. There's a nice fish. Nice white bass. Cool to see them in such good health. This one's a really nice chunky fish. A single large female can lay up to 1 million eggs. We're gonna release this fish. It's gonna go on to make a lot more white bass.
I like fishing because I enjoy it. It's like a sport to me. It's fun to see how many I can catch each time that I go. You want to keep your point of your rod low down, so when you jerk your jig, it goes straight. Also, keep your line taut. If the line's not taut, you can't feel the fish bite. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Nice fish.
Got a nice sized white bass. Woohoo!
Fishing for white bass is very active. Sometimes we'll fish for long enough that your arms get really tired.
Caught a fish.
Fish on.
Not a very big one.
Nicely done though.
Didn't even realize it had a bite at first. I thought I had a snake.
Evelyn just caught her 3rd fish in this hole. Elizabeth has one out of here, and I haven't got one yet out of this hole. One of the many things I learned from my dad in fishing is to adapt to the situation. Sometimes you get to one hole and you might not catch a fish at all, but then you move down to another one and you'll catch 5 or 8 back to back. Does that bend look good, girls, right down there?
Yes, it does.
Let's go try that.
I love hanging out with my family, catching fish. It's also just fun to be out in nature.
Take that spot.
Hearing the birds sing and the water run is just very serene.
Those are sandhill cranes. Yeah, they sound awesome.
I've been taking my daughters fishing since before they could fish. I would carry them in a car seat and I'd bring them out to a fishing spot where they could catch bluegill. We'd go fishing and get them catching fish.
I've been fishing as long as I can remember.
I am very happy that I have a dad that always takes me out. Part of the reason he always takes us out is because he enjoys seeing us have fun.
One of the most enjoyable things about fishing for me with my daughters is watching them catch fish.
Got a white bass.
When they light up and you see that smile, that's the success.
Got one.
Woohoo! Nice job! I'm really looking forward to all the future times I get to come back here and do this with my girls.
Sweeping up dead ants every day, millions of ants inside their house, ants getting into the electrical equipment, and then the electric circuit shorts out. Just much, much worse.
The script is familiar. An exotic ant invades, wreaking havoc. But these are not fire ants, and this is not a horror film.
There is no word to describe them.
Yet like the movies, native species battle for survival. There is public alarm.
Stay in your homes.
And scientists race to combat the menace. This is one crazy ant.
I tell you, gentlemen, science is agreed.
The tawny crazy ant, native to South America, was first documented near Houston and in Florida in the early 2000s. Since then, it has invaded around the Gulf Coast.
They're found in a variety of different habitats, urban, suburban, and then also in natural environments. In Texas, we know that when you get an invasion of crazy ants, you lose lots and lots of insects, and you also lose all the ants except for a few small species.
Researchers, like Ed LeBrun, are concerned by the impacts of crazy ants on natural systems.
Very active today. They cause a lot of damage to the native ecosystems by greatly reducing abundance and diversity of other insects in the system.
And some natural places are especially fragile.
This many ants in any environment will have negative consequences, typically, but there's a lot of endangered species in these caves, right, Todd?
Yeah.
At the entrance of a protected cave on the outskirts of Austin, LeBrun and natural resource specialist Todd Bayless know swarms of crazy ants on the surface are bad news for rare cave bugs below.
We got a call from Texas Cave Management Association to tell us that there was a major infestation of ants that they'd never seen before in their cave. And sure enough, found this tawny crazy ant in huge numbers inside the cave itself. That was a concern to us since this is one of the caves we hope to protect for some species of concern. We knew that they had the potential of being found in other endangered species caves nearby.
Onward and inward. My name is Travis Clark. I'm a natural resources specialist for Travis County at the Balcones Canyonlands Preserve. The BCP was created to provide protections for 8 endangered species. 6 of those are karst invertebrates. We're at a cave in South Austin that's been impacted by tawny crazy ants. And the reason we're entering today is to do one of our quarterly karst faunal surveys to assess impacts by tawny crazy ants. There he is, right there. Right there.
This is one of the species of concern that we're trying to protect. It's the species name's Rhydini austinica.
These species are essentially canaries in a coal mine, and so they're going to be indicative of cave health. And these cave systems are important because they're recharge features. People benefit through drinking water, through recreation, where this comes out in springs.
Cicarina bandita.
And that was 2?
1.
Okay. So essentially what we're charged with is providing all the safeguards we can for these caves.
The underground ecosystem is very unique, not just in North America, but all over the world. Knowing we had a problem, we looked for experts in the ant community that could possibly help us out, and we found Ed LeBrun over at UT's Breckenridge Field Lab.
This is the Invasive Species Research Group at the University of Texas at Austin. And we are working on a lot of invasive species problems in the state of Texas. Most people in Texas, when you're talking about invasive ants, are thinking about red imported fire ants. They actually do less harm to the native Texas ecosystems than these crazy ants do.
Crazy ants, so named for their erratic movements, eat or outcompete most of the spiders and insects around them, including the formidable fire ant.
Fire ants are very tough. They have this extremely toxic venom. She actually goes up and literally takes the venom droplet off the end of the fire ant stinger. And crazy ants, they fight, they get hit with fire ant venom, and they just keep fighting, they keep charging in, and they should all be dying. And so then here's the crazy ant detoxing from the venom. People, when you tell them they displace fire ants, like, yay. But the net effect is very negative. So you can really change the whole system by altering the arthropod community. Here's a trap.
Such threats have biologists searching for ways to control crazy ants. Texas Parks and Wildlife contributed funding to an early investigation of boric acid bait stations in the field.
Unfortunately, it's not very promising.
We discovered that although the crazy ants loved the bait, brought the poison back to their nests, that it just didn't reduce the densities of the ants that we were hoping for.
In the lab, there is now hope for a natural enemy that some crazy ants already carry.
These are uninfected ants, so these were our control ants in that experiment. The microsporidium that we're working on is showing quite a bit of promise.
A fungal parasite specific to these ants could help keep them in check.
The development of larvae to workers is greatly reduced by infection, and the lifespan of workers is reduced by about a quarter. There's these Phytolus and Solenopsis diploropterums that are very tiny. And most of your ant diversity is down at this kind of size. Tawny crazy ants are just a very small component of the overall ant assemblage down in Argentina.
The world of ants
leaf-cutting ants
is complex.
We have here in Texas as well. We have Attitexana.
So further studies of ant interactions, where crazy ants are native and where they are not, may provide more ways to minimize their impacts.
The subterranean nest where the beast spawns its terrible progeny.
Meanwhile, we should remember that the very best solution to invasive species problems is to avoid creating them in the first place.
Crazy ant queens don't fly. What that means is that they don't have a way to infest new areas except for people moving them. And that's unfortunately what's happening all over the state. So people move them when they take a potted plant somewhere that has ants in it. When you go to a garden store to buy something, it's important to look for ants. I mean, you don't have to be an ant biologist, just look for ants, and if they're covered in ants, don't buy it. Recreational vehicles are a problem as well. Being sure that there aren't any ants in your vehicle when you go visit a new place. Species invasion, it's a natural process, right? Species have been moving around the planet since there's been a planet. The problem is humans, with our commerce and everything we do, elevated the rate at which these invasions happen by many orders of magnitude. And so the natural system doesn't have time to adjust before the next invader comes. The natural systems are very resilient. If you can give them time to adjust, they will. We should be paying attention, and we should be investing resources in offsetting the impact. That's why I work here. That's what we're about, is trying to change the dynamics so that we can preserve the natural systems that we all grew up with.
To celebrate 40 years of our television series, we are taking a trip back in time to look at some of our earliest episodes.
Parks and Wildlife Department, Beasley.
In this age of information, keeping up with the latest is an awesome task. But keeping up with Texas Parks and Wildlife is as easy as a free phone call. By using our toll-free Watts line, you can access a truly remarkable database of information about Texas. The latest innovations in communication technology will bring you in direct interface with the highest technology of all, people. Clarence Beasley and Paul Hope are veteran information specialists whose combined experience makes them the most authoritative source on many Texas topics. If there's anyone who can answer your questions, they can.
I'm amazed at how little the human mind can really remember. And the day that you stop learning and the day you stop asking is the day that you ought to hang it up, really, because every day there's something. I think people think we know everything, which we thank them for, but we don't know everything.
Now, there isn't anything wrong with saying you don't know. If it's a real good, legitimate question, you tell them we'll find the answer and call you back.
And we get little kids, and they really ask things, and they generally, things like, send me everything you have on wild animals, you know. My gosh, I could fill up a dump truck full of that stuff. What's an endangered animal? What do we do to protect animals? What animals can you hunt? What animals can't you hunt? Why can't you hunt eagles? Why can't you hunt? Why do you do this? And if you listen to a kid and kind of don't turn him off, just let him ramble on a little bit, he will ask some very pertinent questions and stuff that maybe that we take for granted.
Another call that we get quite occasionally is when little birds fall out of the nest. People expect the Parks and Wildlife Department to come and get a little bird if it's fallen out of the nest, which is a very highly impractical thing. And she wanted to know what would happen to this little bird that had, little fledgling bird that was out in the backyard. And I said, well, the little bird will either learn to fly or the neighborhood cattle eat the bird.
Clarence and Paul work in a dynamic, changing environment. It's their job to keep track of what's happening so that you can stay informed.
Parks and Wildlife, Paul Hope.
If you have a question, or if you'd like to subscribe to the Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine, call us toll-free.
1-800-792-1112.
And you just want to tap it. Good one.
Oh, that's cool. Can I hold one of them?
Water is life.
Oh.
Water is life, not just for these fish that were so interesting to me growing up, but I think as I learned more and more about ecosystems and learned more and more about the nature of how all aspects of our culture depends on water. Needing drinking water, but also just recreational, spiritual. All those ways in which people like me that are recharged by being out there on the river fishing, that all depends on healthy aquatic ecosystems. I went to work for the Nature Conservancy first with the Freshwater Initiative. That was really the group that figured out how to bring the Nature Conservancy into being a player in water conservation. But this was an organization that wasn't just a fire-breathing environmental organization trying to save rivers for fish, but recognized it was about people and nature.
Oh, I got a goggle eye. Hey, baby daddy.
Which is critical, because there won't be an environmental solution that works unless it also works for people.
When I'm sitting here fishing like this, I don't have a care in this world.
I knew of some projects that these old guys had done in Texas, protecting these critical aquatic habitats.
At that time, the Nature Conservancy had a very, very influential board member who was Dr. Clark Hubbs from the University of Texas. He was a world expert on fishes, but especially on desert fishes and especially on Texas fishes.
I would argue that water is important to the future of the globe, because if you don't have water, the normal biological processes, include us, would disappear.
And his promotion of water conservation and aquatic biota conservation for Texas were seminal and foundational for the importance of aquatic conservation.
Biodiversity is why things will be fine for my great-great-great-grandchildren, and if we don't have those animals and plants in there, my great-great-grandchildren may go extinct. We need the biodiversity for our future.
There's not a river or a spring system that the Nature Conservancy has not been a critical player in.
We want to keep working lands working, and that ag producers can actually continue to make an economic living off of the land. So we're really just trying to explore what we can do.
How to drive more efficient use of water and drive some of that water that's already permitted for environmental purposes.
We're trying to figure out conservation practices that we can work with landowners to see if they can look at regenerative ag practices that have rotating of their cattle or rotating of their crops. If there's ways that they can reduce their water use.
Whether it's for paddling a kayak on the Devil's River, or whether it's maintaining the globally significant agriculture in the Rio Grande farther downstream from there. There are reasons we care about these things. And that's added up to protection of over 200 miles of rivers and streams in Texas. All of which is critically important to ecosystems that both people and nature depend on. And has added up to protection of some of those most iconic rivers and landscapes in the state.
You know, you ask, am I hopeful? Well, you have, these two big risks to your resources. Land use changes, and that could be pumping, agriculture. Another one of the things that we couldn't talk about just a few years ago is climate change. There was a period where climate change was really not well received, but it is now. People are starting to accept some of these new concepts, and because of that, I think that there's hope for the resources.
And there are places where we can work with the constituents, with the agencies, with, yes, even the politicians to, to develop the will to do it right.
This series is supported in part by Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, conserving the wild things and wild places of Texas thanks to members across the state.
Additional funding provided by the Toyota Tundra. Your local Toyota dealers are proud to support outdoor recreation and conservation in Texas. Adventure is what we share.